All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I know my presentation is the last one, and you're probably all tired and you want to go home, but I promise you it's going to be interesting. I try to make it easy to follow and fun. So, today I'm going to present to you the open source project that I started to work on several months ago. It's called the Unsafe Code Lab. And, I'll try to tell you more about it. But before, a little bit about myself. My name is Irina. I'm in my final year of bachelor's at Maastricht University. I have an experience as a security engineer intern, and recently I joined the DIVD team. I haven't met any of the people from there, so hi if you see me. Woo, hi! And I just try to be a nice person. But, okay. So, I want to tell you a little bit about my typical week as an AppSec engineer. So, imagine I have to review a Flask application and I see this interesting line where I retrieve the user ID using the request.values method. You're gonna see this method a lot, so probably try to remember that. Next day, I have to work on the microservice in Express.js. And again, I see a similar pattern. I have to retrieve the user ID now using an Express.js built-in function, request.param. And I already have some questions. Okay, similarities, what can we do about it? And finally, on Friday, just before I want to go home, FastAPI application. Again, I'm receiving user data. And naturally, a question pops up in my mind. So if I see similarities as the same pattern, do these examples have the same threat model? Do they have the same risk? And just a quick show of hands. Is there any pen testers here? Okay, some bug bounters. One. Hello. Okay, then some of you can recognize the vulnerability here on the slide. It is actually an HTTP parameter pollution. We're not going to go into that, but just imagine we find this vulnerability in one of the examples I showed you previously. Then the question is this vulnerability going to be present in other services where we saw this similar pattern? And what if the same vulnerability class is going to be present in one place? Is it going to be the same in other places? And the answer is, of course it depends. And, okay, so it's actually known that in Flask and Express.js version 4, if you see something like this happening, request.values and request.param, you should be concerned, because if you write something similar and you are not very consistent in your development, this implementation can lead to a potential class vulnerabilities made confusion attacks. But in FastAPI, it is not the case. Of course, the code can still be vulnerable. We don't know that, but it is you should mark it as lower priority because it's not as obvious what's happening there. Okay, in my experience, I had to work with code with different languages, different frameworks, and of course I was confused. Even in languages that I thought I understood well enough, I was so lost. And the question was not, oh my God, where is the vulnerability? But where do I even start? Where do I start looking? And the first option that I found for myself was the Capture the Flag competitions. To be honest, they were a blast. It was a lot of help for me to start learning, to start understanding the security. But of course, they have their own limitations. The main one being that CTF competitions reward finding the flag, not understanding how the vulnerability is present in the code, and of course not how to fix it. And the second option is our blog posts, and there are many incredible, very helpful blog posts out there, but as you can imagine, they also have their own limitations, such as some blog posts are outdated. Imagine you need a specific version, or code style is very different from what you would expect. So it is a lot of overhead, and you need to keep that all in mind while you are working with different code. So this is the problem that I faced myself, and I was thinking, you know what? It would be so nice to have a platform with realistic and runnable, vulnerable code. Written in modern frameworks, such that you can just go and see how the vulnerabilities are present in different frameworks. And I thought, you know what? It doesn't exist. Let's just create it. And that's how the Unsafe Code Lab was born. So what is it? You're going to learn a bit more during the presentation, but I just want to tell you this project is built for AppSec engineers, for researchers, and for developers, of course, and to be honest, for everybody from zero experience to advanced users. But let's go to the case study. Let's try to understand a bit more how the project is structured. And I'm going to use the case study of source confusion vulnerabilities. And please pay attention, because if you're not going to pay attention, you're going to be lost very quickly. No, I'm just kidding. Let's not go over it. Let's start from the very beginning. Okay, source confusion. Has anybody heard of that before? No, because I just created that terminology, of course. Okay, let's try to use an analogy and understand what is it, how does it work. So I'm going to use an analogy of a shell game. If you're unfamiliar with the game, there is 3 cups and a ball, and your goal is to just keep track of the ball. And in our analogy, the ball represents the user data that we retrieve. For example, as we already saw, user ID. And this ball or user data can come from different sources, such as body form, query parameter, or the path, which are the cups in our case. So imagine you see a request where user ID is passed via the body form. It is only natural to assume that it's going to come only from there. Like, for example, you see a ball, it is hidden under the yellow cup. No matter how you shuffle this cup, you're going to say, okay, the ball is always going to come from the yellow cup. However, it's not always the case. What if there are multiple balls? And if you're unfamiliar with the shell game, it's a scam, because that's exactly how it works. Sorry if you didn't know. Basically, in our analogy with the code, what happens is that some applications actually are happy to receive user data from different sources. So your user ID can come from the body form, but what if it comes from the query string? And if you are unfamiliar with all of this body, query, parameters, blah, 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 doesn't matter, because now we're going to use SpongeBob to help us to understand what's going on here a little better. So imagine we have SpongeBob, and he wants to just read his messages. We see an HTTP request, a GET request here, where SpongeBob's username is passed via the pass argument, and should be fine. But what happens if I myself add Squidward username via the query parameter? And actually, it's unclear, because it is up to the application to handle such situations. And if application is configured poorly, it's already a potential for the confusion vulnerability. But situation can be even more complicated, because we, of course, can pass Mr. Krabs' username in the body. And now you see, we basically have 3 sources where the data can come from. And now I'll try to explain to you how it can be present in the code. And just to show you how it is present in the project. So I just want to emphasize that these are not the vulnerabilities in the frameworks, okay? This is just vulnerabilities that can be present in any framework. And I'm going to use Flask because I like it. Is there any Flask developers, by the way? Python developers? Yay! Hello, guys. Maybe you will say, oh, something I didn't know of. Okay, so imagine we want to retrieve Squidward messages, and in the request, Squidward's credentials are passed via the body form, and he just has his messages. But recently, Squidward discovered if he adds SpongeBob username as a query parameter, he is going to see SpongeBob's messages, and you're going to be like, okay, this is not very nice. How that can happen? I try not to swear. Okay. Okay, basically what I'm going to tell you is that this vulnerability can be present in numerous amount of ways. And the Unsafe Code Lab is built in such a way that we start from the very easy example and we just build upon it such that people from different backgrounds, imagine you've never seen Python in your life. I don't know why that happened, but imagine that happened. And you just don't know it. And so our goal is to make it accessible for everyone. So we start from the easiest example. So the source confusion happens not because you write somewhere like there is a one line that fails you. The source confusion happens because there are different lines that are not agreeing with each other. And here we see that in Flask there are the two methods that you see here, request.args and request.form. Request.args returns the data from the query string, and if it is not present, then we return the data from the body, because that's how Python works. And the problem is that when we authenticate the user, when we authenticate Squidward, we use just the form method. But when we retrieve the messages, we use at least two methods. And you say, okay, Irina, just don't do stupid mistakes. Like, I would find that easily. I'm an expert here. And I say, yes, friend, you are, but hear me out. Flask is built different from other frameworks. And actually in Flask, there is a so-called method that I told you to remember called request.values. So basically it's a combined dictionary that combines data from the query string and from the body and returns you the result basically the same way that I showed you previously. It prioritizes the query parameter and returns you the body parameter only if the query parameter is absent. And it basically is the same thing. But if you are unfamiliar with how Flask is built, with the Flask design, you can never find this vulnerability, because this is something you need to look into the design of the framework. And it's basically why Unsafe Code Lab is helpful. Let's just see another example, because I want you to know that it is not about, we don't have just one example. Let's just go over it. Okay, imagine we want to bribe Squidward and want to steal the Krusty Krab's formula, and Squidward wants a lot of money, and he wants it now, but we have a lame bank, and it allows us only to send money in very little amount. For example, in 50, like we can send $50, but if we try to send $5,000, yeah, poor soul, you cannot do that. Basically, if in the application, if the bank application has the vulnerability, HTTP parameter pollution that I mentioned before, the situation can happen that if you add the repeated query parameter, the amount, with different values, it might happen that when you check what amount is allowed, it's going to check the first parameter, but when it's going to send the last parameter. So it checks, is it less or equal to 50? It is. Then send the money, and it sends 5,000. Okay, let's come back to this awfully large example, which you cannot read, and I don't expect you to read that anyway. Basically, I'm going to explain to you what it does. In this code sample, we have a functionality of retrieving messages if a user is a member of a group. So we see a group messages. Imagine like WhatsApp chat. And if you look over this code, maybe later if you would like to look at the slides, you see that, again, vulnerability is not in this line, but in how lines are presented. And the first line here is that when we check the group membership, we are checking, again, request.args or request.viewArgs. And request.viewArgs actually returns the data from the pass argument. But if we look at the main function, we see that it only takes the group from the pass argument. So basically, what I want to emphasize with this example is not that, okay, Irina, it is the same example, you're just showing it over and over, you found one problem, cool, I don't know what to say. But actually what I wanted you to see is that when you're going to review the code, you're going to see only this function. And in Flask, in modern development, it's very popular to use decorators. So you see that basic AUs, check group membership, these are decorators. And usually they are present in different files, if not different directories. And it's your job to go over this file directories, combine all of this logic together. And it's just one function. And there are like hundreds or thousands of them. And let's just go over the example how it works. So imagine Plankton wants to access Krusty Krab group messages. He's not allowed to do that because he's not a member. But if he just adds his own group at the end, he can now see the Krusty Krab's messages because Plankton is pretty smart. he found the vulnerability. Let's just go over how it works a little bit more, just to make sure we understand. So, when Plankton added his own group as a query string, what happens is that data is retrieved from the request.args because it is present. Now it retrieves. But when we show the messages of the group, we're just checking the pass parameter. And I hope you all now a bit understand what's going on, because the technical part is over. Yay! Let's just let's just understand why is it important. Because you say, okay, Flask has this little trick, and what, I'm not programming on Flask, I don't use it, I don't care. And I say, my friend, this is not just Flask. Actually, this vulnerability has been found in CherryPy, in Express.js version 4, in Ruby on Rails, PHP, and even more frameworks. And what I want to emphasize is that it's not framework fault, but some frameworks, they just have these built-in foot guns that you as a developer allow to implement such code that you think it is for convenience to have to retrieve data, for example, from different sources, because why not do that? What if people want to send in different ways? But actually it can create problems. And good news, some frameworks get it right, because Unsafe Code is about comparing these frameworks. And apparently, Django and Express.js, starting from version 5, they had this built-in merge functionality, this merge methods, but they actually removed them, and now they don't have it. So it would be very nice to compare how frameworks work and learn from each other. So in the name of my presentation, I say how to fix them. So let's talk about fixing source confusion. My advice would be always just try to have a single source of truth, but single source of truth. Try not to use these methods what combine different sources. But if you cannot never, prevent it from happening, like it's already there, try to be consistent with your implementation, and of course, just try to be consistent. So I just want to summarize the Unsafe Code Lab. So what is it? It is a corpus of vulnerable code that is present among many frameworks. For now, today is our release of this of our project, and we've covered already some implementation in Flask and CherryPy, Django, FastAPI, Express.js, and even more frameworks are coming, and we actually need your help to do that. So if you want, if something that I said really clicked with you and you want to contribute, it is very easy to do. We spend a lot of time to try to make it as easy as possible. What you need to do, you just need to set up the development. It's very easy. You try to play whatever you have locally. What we expect from you is just to write code that you think is going to be helpful, just to show the vulnerabilities that you would like to show. We are generating README for you, so you don't have to write any documentation. It's all standardized, luckily. You just submit the pull request, and that's it. So if you really would like to contribute, but you don't really want to code, of course, first of all, if you want to code, do. But if you don't, just ask questions, critique us, say like, you know what, this is all wrong and I hate it and I would love to receive it, and spread the word about the project, because it would be very helpful for us. And for feedback, you have my email here, and I'm kind of jobless, so if you have job offers, I would also like to have them. And that's about it. I'm really thankful for the opportunity. And do you guys have any questions?
What gives you a headache at night when you're done doing amazing stuff? Because it sounds very, very happy, joy, but I can imagine that it's quite hard sometimes.
It is very hard. It's hard to, because it's open source and I study. I am a full-time student. It's just hard to combine. I basically have no free time. That's what gives me like a sad face. But if we have more contributors, I'm not saying anything, but if we have more contributors, it would help. I think
it's very, very nice that you're doing this, and it's open source, and that we can all benefit from it. So again, applause, because she's doing this next to all the other. Yes, that's the energy. Thank you.